Hello and welcome to the lecture for basics in R. All right, today we'll be discussing about the key basics of what have been used in R. First of all, how do we store data in R? Now, storing data, like for example, if you take these two, this data that is a equals 2 plus 2, then you can probably store the results of the calculation done with the objects as another object. Now, and you can use the other way to store the data. You can perform many calculations accordingly. And for example, if you want to remove certain data, then you probably need to just type in RM and the data that you want to delete. In that case, the R console basically removes that data from the list. Now, what are key conditions that are available and used in R? First of all, for equality, we used this sign, that is a double time of equal to. And then for not equal is this, and for greater than, less than, and equal to. These are the basic conditions that we basically use in for validation in R. And the special values, for example, not n here represents the missing numeric values. Nan is for not a number, a null function, and infinity. Now these, the ones that have been highlighted in red over here, are the special value used in R. And whereas if you want to denote any, you want to work on certain conditions, then we basically use the ones that have been highlighted in the black. Now the data structure in how is the data structure in R? Now there are five forms. One is the vector, with the matrix, the list, the data frame, and the array. Whereas the control structure, where we need certain operations to be repeated most of the time, we use the for loops, while loops, if, and if else. Now we'll discuss more in detail about the data structure at present. First of all, we'll discuss about vector. Now, what basically vector is? In MS Excel, as we know that, let's say for example, if you want to know in what particular cell, if you want to add two values, then this is how we basically do. Whereas in R programming, we first denote what basically comes into that cell. That is A is equal to 10, B equals to 5, B 5, and the operation that we need for addition, we basically just type in that, and and we get the result or the output. For example, we would like to know the length of the particular name, or we would like to know what is the first three characters in a particular name, or we want to turn the name into an uppercase. This is how these are the key functions that we put in Excel to come up with the output. Whereas in R programming, this is how we basically use that. For example, if you want to know the number of characters in the name, we probably need to type in character nchr and the person name over here, which is Nishan. It gives you the output similar to the. It calculates basically the length of the name. Then similarly, we have to know the first three letters in a particular name. In that case, we type in structure, that is sub str, and we get the initial three characters in the name. And thirdly, to turn up the name into upper cases, in that case we need to type in to upper and the name, and this is how the data gets converted. Now, if you want to know how to calculate come up with the maximum data in Excel, we basically need type in max function and the data sets, and the Excel basically searches for the maximum value and throws up the output. In a similar case, say for example, we have a vector where we have these three numbers into it, and we would like to know the maximum number. And this is how we basically come up with the data. The output is being shown. Whereas if you want to know the length of each and every character, in that case, in our programming, you first put the data into a particular array or a cell, and then you just put in the data. You actually basically create a new vector, and within that vector, we already have the data set. And then within that, we just need to type in the character's name and the new vector that you formed, and it shows up the output accordingly. How do we create a vector now? Now to create a vector, you can create a sequence, for example, from 10 to 20, you just need to type in 10 and colon to 20, and the output that it shows is from 10 to 20. And if you want to show, you get it can also be represented in this fashion too, where you can type in sequence, and this is basically intervals. For example, you want to have an interval of one between each and every data, then this is the output it shows. If you make it two, so probably the number changes from here from 10 to 12 to 14 or so. Now, how do we combine two vectors to create a large vector? So, for example, we have this vector which the first vector is denoted by these three numbers, and we want to add in or we want to join in other three data. Then we need to put in the concatenation mark that is represented by C, and then this combines the complete data, and this is how the output basically looks like. Now, the Excel function also, sorry, the R programming also have certain inbuilt functions such as letters. If you just type in letters, you probably get all the each and alphabets um, of the English word. And whereas if you want to know what are the key months, all the months in a particular year, you just need to type in month.abb and it throws the output. How do you assess the value of vector? For example, if you want to print the name on a particular for referencing for a certain reference, say we have a vector named people, we have three data into that. Secondly, we want to know what is the first value from the vector. In that case, we just need to type in that number. So that say within the people vector, which is the first data that we would like to know, we just need to type in under the R program, where R throws up the output. Secondly, let's say if you want to evaluate the math within the bracket. So this is how we basically do it. We use the vector name and put the uh, 1 plus 2 basically gives you 3, and the R program basically picks up the third value within the vector and throws out the output. And if you want to print the list in the first and second, third value, this is how basically what you need to type in, or a combination of second or third. So this is how you basically come up with the outputs with certain. How do you basically look at what you basically want to enter data, and this is how the output basically looks like. Now, how vector operation basically works is, for example, if you want to add two vectors, in that case, you just need to add in the addition sign, and this is the addition basically takes up like taking this data, the first vector data, and adding it with the second vector's first data, and this is how the addition between two vectors is performed. Now, how do we define two vectors? For example, we have the first vector uh, that is which includes these data, that is first, second, third, and the second data, which is the text2, has this as these data, that is first, second, and third, and booleans is true and false. Now we want to concatenate two vectors. We use it by using the paste function in R. In paste, if we type in the two vectors that we want to concatenate. In that case, we just need to type in paste, and this is how the output basically looks like. It takes the first vector's data and then combines it with the second vector data. And say, for example, if we want to check in to do certain conditional, if we want to do certain conditional uh, actions, in that case we use if else. And here we have mentioned that if else we've taken as the conditions that if the booleans is equal to true, then you probably need to paste the data from this is the operation. If it turns out to be true, in that case, how this is the operation that we need to perform. If it doesn't, if it is not true, and then in that case, we probably need an output to be shown as this. So in the first case, now the R program basically runs this, and you see that the first condition, which is true, over here in the booleans it is true. In that case, the action that needs to be performed is that we need to concatenate two two vectors data set. So in that case, it is the condition is true. So the we have first and so the condition is met. In that case, it throws the output that we wanted. And the same case happens in the second data, because it is also true. But whereas in the third, the data is false. In that case, it throws out uh, the one that the data that we have mentioned if the answer is not true. Now over here we have four cell vector plus one vector. So if we have three data in a particular vector, and we will add just one data to it, then probably the R basically adds that number to each and every data within the vector itself. Now, comparing four cells with two cell vectors, like for example, we can also do conditional over here, where if we have a condition over here saying that in a particular vector, we have these three data, and we have put in a condition if it is greater than 50, then probably the output is likely to show false or true. So as this number is less than, as great as these numbers are less than the condition that we've mentioned over here, it shows in false, whereas in the third it turns out to be true. Now if we are trying to calculate two vectors of different length, in that case R basically throws up a warning saying that the previous one has a shorter length compared to the other the second vector, which is a bit longer. So the output would not properly in that case, the over here it has done performed the addition, but but later on, yeah, it has also calculated the last vector again back to the first one, and this is how uh, the our the operation basically performs. So if you are making a particular data for addition between two vectors, you make sure that they need to be in similar length. What are certain arithmetic functions used, which is very much similar in Excel formula as well as in R? These are the key functions that have been performed in Excel, such as sum. It is very much, so how do we denote that function in R? It is also very much similar. It is we can type in sum. For average in R, it is mean. For counting a particular for counting the number of characters or data within a particular vector or in a particular length in cell. In R function, it is used by typing R length. For maximum, you need to type in max. It's very much similar to that. To calculate the standard deviation, we need to type in SD. For absolute value, you just need to type in APS. And for rounding up or for having a ceiling of floor, it's pretty much similar to the Excel functions. And for rounding up, is also the same thing. So it is for exponential data, for log, as well as for square root. Now, if you want to use the text function, in Excel formula, we basically type in concatenate, whereas in R, we type in paste. And for certain text adjustment for left, middle, right, we type in sub str. For turning a lowercase data to R and upper, we type in to lower and to upper in R function. For knowing the length or doing the length of a data, in R we basically type in n character, and to find we basically type this grepl, and to replace in R function we use gsub. Now the other functions that are used in R is first of all is but na, that is for if we see expect the data is not available, in that case we type in this data. For matching in our function, we use which. For repetition, we use RAP. For ranking, it is similar. For if condition, we basically use if else, whereas for VLOOKUP, we use the merge function in R. Now, there are certain other functions, such as format of cells in R function. These how it's been used to convert text to columns, and how to use filter. For filtering, we use the dplyr library. We'll be using it up in further videos. And then for pivot table, how to group and summarize. These are from the package, the dplyr package. Therefore, for transposing the data, we use the reshape package, and for sorting as well, also we use the dplyr package, and for goal seek and for certain repetition calculation, we use the for and the while loops. So that's all for the basics of R. Thank you for listening, and probably we'll discuss further videos. In the, for further basics, we'll talk to the other videos now.